back to HM and Big E Review Things. Today, we are talking about Andor and why nobody seems to care about Andor. Why does nobody care? It's really strange. Let's first talk about the show, and then maybe we can talk about why it seems it wasn't promoted, it didn't make a big splash, and it doesn't really seem to have too much of a lasting legacy. So what did you guys think about the show, Andor, Season 1?
I think Rob needs to go first.
Yeah, Rob, as a resident Star Wars expert.
Not an expert.
What did you think?
But as a fan, it was a really good show.
Yeah.
There is not too much I could say to fault it.
Yeah.
I think the writing was great.
Yep.
What I will notice is that it was a little more gritty. It went with the more Rogue One feel.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like bombastic TIE fighters and X-Wings.
Yeah.
It was more story and character driven.
Right.
Which, Homing and I were talking about it. I sort of equated it to like For All Mankind, where you're talking about, the situation you're in,
right,
the characters, as opposed to X-Wing and TIE fighters.
That's a high praise comparison from you guys, For All Mankind. You guys love that show.
Great
which
show.
I started and I couldn't really get through it. But my comparison for this show is Andor is the DS9 of Star Wars. DS9, sort of the dark, the black sheep, of that trilogy of why aren't you on a spaceship? Why don't you have a captain? And it was just kind of really, it felt weird, especially coming right off of TNG, this bright, hopeful thing, and now we're dealing with gritty and dark and it's not a lot of people's favorites, but it's a lot of people's critically, acclaimed and favorites. But most people's comfort food and comfort show is TNG. So I think in that same way, most people will like the movies and some of the brighter shows, and it's Obi-Wan, it's Mandalorian, but this really is good.
Right, but the difference there is that TNG and DS9 are similar in the sense that they're the not the themes, but the what do you call it, the
genre,
not the genre. It's like they just have a similar feel. I think they feel the same in many ways. Like Starfleet is Starfleet.
Right.
There's a captain. There's a command structure. Yes, I know they're on a space station versus a starship, but overall, like the way I compare it is a little bit more leaning towards what Rob would say. My comparison would be like it's the Logan of the X-Men trilogy.
Oh, okay.
So it's a much more self-contained story that's grittier, that's darker, that seems kind of different than his Wolverine character.
Right.
But it's clearly in the same universe, but it's actually it tells a totally different story.
Sure.
I mean, if I were just going to list the things I liked about it, I would say number one, there are clear, consistent character motivations.
Yes.
And they're
I'm going to jump in here before you continue.
Okay.
I agree with that 99% of the thing, but the thing that kicks off the entire show is he is looking for his sister, which is just completely dropped and never mentioned again. I think there are hints, or they're talking that it'll be resolved in season 2, but in terms of character motivation, that was supposed to be the thing that drove.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is the characters seem like they're fleshed out.
Yeah, logical.
They're put in moral dilemmas where the motivations have to be tested.
Right.
I would say number 2, there's a lot of show not tell.
Yes.
World building.
Yes.
And you have to really pay attention.
Yes.
I had to put subtitles on because I was like, oh shoot, I missed one part if I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
On number 3, I wrote that there was a lot of creative camera work and direction that made the world come alive to me. Like in some of these Star Wars or a lot of these movies nowadays, it's just lazy camera work where there's like some form of a green screen and act.
Right.
Literally shot by shot, A/B shots. But I noticed this one, whoever was directing, they would go on the ground showing this. They would show it from above. It looked like a different world than I've even seen in The Mandalorian, which I think is gone lazier.
One of the things that we praise often in movies that this show did that I don't think any of the Star Wars shows has done is this was shot a lot on location.
Right. That's probably why.
And yeah, so it just feels more real because it is real.
Yeah.
When they are on that island and planning, they're on a real island, When they're in the government buildings, they went and they filmed somewhere in some university or whatever, and they painted out whatever the stuff that's modern.
So maybe the question, maybe Rob knows the answer is, did this have a higher budget? Because every other show seems to be shot on some green screen in London, UK, and that's it.
It's in the volume, which you hated in Mando season 3.
I did not like it.
It just looked so fake.
It looks so fake.
Yeah.
I would say add to that, action and music are used at the right time because there's a lot of silence in this show.
Yeah.
And you think like they would just cover it with music and make it kind of manipulate your emotions.
Right.
Also, I think the action was restrained.
Yes.
Like there's not a lot of action.
Build up.
It builds up.
Yeah.
Some would say it's called a slow burn or whatever, and that's why I suspect it gained no traction. Because a lot of the Star Wars fans are looking for the lightsaber to come
lightsabers,
blasters, X-wings, Falcon, and lastly, I would say it tells a new story without Jedi and Skywalkers,
which is great.
Yeah.
Which I did not think was possible with Star Wars. That was one of my complaints about the Star Wars universe is anytime they try to kind of deviate, it seems they need to go back to lightsabers and Skywalkers. The universe seems really small because they're kind of unable to tell any mainline stories. But this is really, this was a great... I thought this was very good.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to say also, like, again, with the characters. And, I mean, we're already in spoilers, right?
Yeah.
So Mon Mothma.
Mon Mothma.
Yeah. Like, you really felt for her character, how torn she was. Like, it's my family, my position, but, there's the greater cause that I believe in and how I'm going to support it. And it did tug on certain emotional feels for me that, hey, I'm connecting with this character, right?
It's a deeper Star Wars story because even the quote-unquote good guys, the rebels, they're faced with moral dilemmas that they make choices that are not quote-unquote good, right? But for the greater cause, we're going to have to sacrifice.
And that was, I guess, started in Rogue One. I remember when Rogue One came out that, people were praising Andor's character, that, right in the beginning, he shoots the guy, because he's alerted the Imperials to them or whatever it is. That, it's so morally gray. And, there's a lot of that where for the good of...
They need this show to kind of explain how bad the Empire really is.
Yes.
Which is kind of glossed over in most Star Wars.
Yes.
And like I remember watching the prequels. Here's the problem with the prequels, that it's a war that's gone on for 10 years, but Coruscant looks like there's not even a brick that's blown up. Right? There's a lot of those things where this was like, you really felt that the Empire was unjust, it was evil.
Yes.
And they were treating people like human garbage.
And Star Wars has never done that, to my recollection. It's always just been this kind of faceless, kind of almost cartoonish evil.
Very cartoonish.
Right? This was the realistic depiction of what an evil galactic empire would actually be and how that would actually happen. I love that about this, right? And that's why I like that one episode of The Mandalorian where they... Was it The Mandalorian?
Yeah, it's in Coruscant.
Where they go on Coruscant and it's a completely different thing. And it kind of shows how, in that case, the New Republic is trying, like, how it actually works. Like, I know that as a space opera, Star Wars doesn't get into the nitty-gritty like Star Trek does of how Starfleet operates and the ranks and all that kind of stuff and the protocols and their directives. But I think a bit of that is necessary. And this glimpse into the Star Wars world of this empire actually working, these people, this kind of day-to-day evil as opposed to the Darth Vader super evil. It feels so much more real, so much more sinister. I thought this was great. I thought that was really good.
I mean, the show, I will say, there's a lot to juggle. And there was some points of frustration because it seemed like, there's like 6 stories here, and I'm trying to scratch my head. Is this called Andor, or should this be called something else where there's, about the planet or something, right? Because there's about 6 stories. You're trying to even remember all the names. And it swerved me because I didn't know he was going to be in prison. I was like, where's this story going, right? And that's a huge chunk of the story.
It is.
I thought if anything, if they're going to kind of make the typical arc, is he starts out in prison and you find out how he gets there. But literally, he doesn't do that.
But I kind of like that. I like that they, instead of a lot of with these streaming shows now where they're trying to tell one story and they stretch it over 10 episodes.
Right.
This is almost like 3 little mini arcs.
Yeah.
Right, you have the planning for the thing, the heist, then you have the prison part, and then you have kind of the rebellion kind of part,
Right.
and it's almost kind of 3 different things, and then it all ties together. I thought this was nice because in a lot of those other shows, when you can feel it's stretched so thin that they have to kind of just fill this episode with like nothing and cliffhangers just so you come back because nothing really happened.
It assumes the audience wants a deeper story and is intelligent.
And when you were listing that off, and with the show don't tell stuff, that it really does such a good job of that you have to pay attention. You have to it doesn't spell things out for you. It just assumes that if you're paying attention, you will have picked up, what this means when he says this, or what this means when he does that, and it's great.
It's the opposite. I know, Rob, you want to jump in here to the Rise of Skywalker, the sequels, because that whole series assumes the audience is dumb, and where the bad guys have to say, "I am evil."
Yeah, I was the spy.
Right. Oh,
which they do a really good job with the spies in this one.
This was great, and where the thing that keeps sticking out for me for the sequel trilogy is when Maz Kanata.
Yeah.
She has Anakin's lightsaber,
right.
And literally, when asked about it, she said, "Oh, well, we'll talk about that another time." And they never talk about it. And how is this $1 billion movie, or however many millions of dollars movie, and all these scriptwriters, that was their solution to solve this? Let's put it in, and we'll figure it out.
There is text, or books, about
that
how she got it,
right? And so Star Wars historically, even with the prequels and with the original trilogy, even where there's a well-established history where there's a lot of gaps that are left by the movies, and then supplementary stuff fills it in, right? Like the Clone Wars, the animated series, filled in so much between episode 2 and 3 that fleshed out that kind of, because 2 ended, and then 3 starts off there in space and fighting over Coruscant.
Yeah,
but it fills up so much. And even with the original trilogy, there's a lot of that. And so I'm not surprised that there is supplementary material that fixes those problems.
But you shouldn't
have to. And Andor doesn't. I feel Andor doesn't leave any of that. I feel there's a couple of highlights that I really want to point out. Obviously, Luthen's speech on that catwalk about what he gives up, fantastic. The dead kid's manifesto at the end, talking about you just need to try. The part of fighting back is about trying, which is very against. There is no try, but maybe for regular day-to-day people, you actually do just need to try. There is no do or do. You just need to keep trying, and that trying is important. And then the other big highlight for me was Andy Serkis and his character called Kino. Yeah. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he played a great character.
Very memorable character, believable in his motivations, believable as he kind of turned. His leadership was well earned. His sacrifice at the end, makes it kind of such a heartbreaking story, right? Like, he knew, he must have known that it was a water prison, and he's proceeding to lead these people out. He knows he can't escape, but he's leading them and he's motivating them to all fight back because trying. And what a great character, and very, very well acted by Andy Serkis. Yeah,
and we know, but you know what's going to happen to Andor.
Well, yes, yeah. Well,
they have a second season.
Second season has been approved, and I think they're saying that the finale of the second season will be like a few days before the beginning of Rogue One.
Right.
So it's going to lead right in. So it'll stop after season 2, hopefully. I like when things have a defined end. Ted Lasso is ending tomorrow. Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay.
So why are people not talking about this?
Why are people not talking about this?
That's a good question.
That is a great question.
I have a theory.
Okay.
So if you look at most Star Wars, IPs.
Yeah.
What's driving it is merchandise. What's coming out of Andor that you want to buy?
I would say
The square robot.
the square robot, Emo.
Emo, yeah. Be emo.
Yes, and maybe people want the Ma character.
Yeah.
Because, like, look, Mandalorian, Razor Crest.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda.
He's
Yeah.
massive.
Beskar armor.
Yes.
Boba Fett. Well, everyone wants a Boba Fett character.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Boba Fett's starship. Right?
But
what comes out of Andor that
I know.
people want to
I
buy?
agree with you, and that is the consequence or the result, maybe, of the better writing. Because one of the things that I really appreciated about this is that they didn't throw just fan service. This. Luke shows up at the end of Mando 2. Boba Fett shows up. These are things you remember, and this doesn't have that. This really respects just.
But
and so because of that, then there is no merchandise.
But then merchandise
It's
is
just
what
characters.
gets people talking, and then people talking, hey, let's check it out.
I know, and I'm not surprised that that's your theory. You're a big toy guy. You keep your finger on the pulse of the toy market quite closely. So I accept that submission of your theory and agree with it.
My theory is that, number one, the market is so saturated with Star Wars stuff. Mm-hmm. So now you have like 5 shows launching.
And generally the sentiment for Star Wars stuff has not been great.
Right. It's lost its direction. It's just thrown everything to the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it. And I think the other thing, psychologically, Star Wars fans are trained to enjoy a certain product.
Yeah.
It's a certain drug, so to speak. They want the Beskar armor. They want the lightsaber. They want the action. They want the fan service. They don't want, when you click on Andor, a slow story with characters that don't tell you everything, and it takes a long time before you see an action piece. There's no flamethrowers and some guy coming out with like a massive AT-AT in this. There's almost none of that.
Yep.
It's like one space battle.
There's one tiny space battle, yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah.
But so when most Star Wars fans are watching this, they're like, this is boring. This is not Star Wars.
Well, and the other part is, I totally agree with that. I think an example of that is even Disney knew when they released it, they had to release the first 2 episodes. And even that wouldn't have been enough. I think when they released it, they should have released the first, 4 or 5, maybe 6. 6 is the big payoff, right? The big heist. But before then, it's a very slow burn. And that is very non-Star Wars. This series that prides itself, every opening for every movie is a big ship flying over a planet, usually shooting things, right? And this has none of that.
Yeah, didn't they do a study where if you don't capture your audience within the first 3 or 4 episodes, your chances are you're going to lose them.
I'm sure a study like that has been done. I
think it's even shorter.
I was going to say, that seems a little long.
I think it's the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, that does seem a little long.
Which is why Netflix releases everything.
Yeah, they just dump it, right?
But I guess the question
Disney's
is,
not even pushing it.
This is a good. We all agree, critically, it's a good story, good characters, all that kind of stuff. But why was this made? Who was the person that said we got to make an Andor story to tell the story of Andor, but also the story of the part of the rebellion forming and how evil the Empire is? The subject material is not that interesting.
Why did Disney greenlight it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is one you could have applied this formula and let's do it the Knights of the Old Republic,
right?
And get some excitement to say this is a new era of Star Wars. Instead, you're rehashing something that Star Wars Rebels talks about.
A script was written. It was good. Like we all agree, it was good, and that's why they greenlit it.
To counter that was my reaction when Rogue One came out. Like, why is there a movie explaining why there is a Death Star port? Who cares? Like, that's a throwaway line. It's a construct of why the movie has to exist so that Luke can destroy it. You're creating an entire movie around it. That's not necessary. But this, I feel, gives a lot of real insight into the workings of the world, like fleshing out that world that is already established, and it does such a good job with it.
It does, but again, the question is, why does nobody care? And I think maybe it's nobody really cares about the Empire anymore, because they're also pushing the sequel stuff where there's really no Empire. So you're harkening back to the trilogy.
The First Order, which is very different.
The First Order apparently is different. They need a movie about how that formed.
Yeah.
Right? Not this empire, right? You know, I was really afraid of the last episode. Here's the Lantern. Here's Darth Vader coming down.
Yeah, no Darth Vader.
No.
Palpatine doesn't show up.
They mention him.
And I mean, these are all like we're revisiting Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera, which are established characters, but it's not kind of done in a cameo kind of way, right? It's really fleshing them out. Which again, contrasting with Obi-Wan, the series immediately preceding this, there was it's Darth Vader and it's Anakin.
But did people care about that too?
I think people cared more. I mean, we all watched that.
Yeah.
We didn't watch. I had to be dragged to watch Andor after hearing it was good. I was like, I'm sure it's great. I'm not going to watch it. I don't care. And then I only watched it. I mean, it's been out for a year now?
Andor?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been out for a long time.
8 months or so.
Yeah. Okay. And after seeing some of these other reviewers going back and saying, oh, actually, this was really good, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And I found it to be amazing. So maybe the positive word of mouth will slowly build an audience back for it. But I agree that the initial first couple episodes were so slow and just easily turned people away. Disney buried the show. I talked about it when I started watching the show with you guys. When you click on Disney Plus and you click on Star Wars, why not promote this amazing show that is getting critical, praise universally? And
let's see what.
Open it up. But I had to scroll to the second row of Disney Star Wars original stories, in order to see Andor, and it was behind all this stuff that was like, why are you promoting this? So I don't know why Disney's not pushing it more, given its critical reception.
I don't know what the powers that be are trying to do with Star Wars,
right?
Because originally it was 3 movies, and they sort of built the world kind of around that with and then with the prequels they had to tie the Clone Wars in. Now it's with the sequels, they're jumping all over the place where for the average fan, you're like, wait, what era are we in?
I don't know.
Why are we talking about this?
Right.
Why is this person alive? I thought they were dead.
Right.
Like, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
And if this is another video, but we've talked about how the Star Wars really needs a reboot where they just jump 3,000 years in the future or something.
Okay. Andor shows up on the 3rd row, first column.
What is that row called though?
So the
series and specials.
Oh, okay.
It's not even in the originals.
Okay.
Which I thought is kind of strange.
Which is Visions.
But the good thing is it's ahead of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah. Rancor. Look, you remember a Rancor?
Yes.
Right? And
that's what I mean. It's all over the place. So
that city looked so fake.
It's
when the Mos Eisley or Mos Espa?
Yeah.
Mos Espa.
The Andor series made everything feel real.
Yeah.
Way more than these other shows.
Right. You complain in Mandalorian when they go to these gritty cities and it just all looks super polished, right?
Super polished.
This looks great. This feels real. This feels lived in. This feels Star Wars. Star Wars has always been that was one of the big complaints about the prequels, right? Compared to the original. The original trilogy, everything felt very real and lived in and dirty, and the prequels kind of cleaned it up a little too much.
Well, what can you say? I mean, it's a good show, but I literally have not really talked to anybody about it, except maybe you guys.
The other show that I would compare it to, especially episode 6, since we're comparing it to fairly high praise shows, is Firefly.
I was about to say Firefly.
The Angel episode,
yes.
where they heist and they steal from the hospital. It feels a lot of that, right? And,
well, that was a lot more fun to that. This one felt like something 1984, where people are watching you, you're going to get electrocuted, you better not, and then you find out at the end that actually they have no intention of freeing you.
No, I didn't mean the prison break. I meant the heist.
Oh, the
Aldhani
heist.
Yeah. The Aldhani heist felt like that hospital heist.
Okay.
And then even with like the betrayal at the end, which was what Jane, and that was a beautiful scene. And so it was just that reminds me of that too. So we were comparing it to great things. If you haven't watched this, please watch the show.
Yeah.
If you can get through the first 5 episodes. Let me just tell the personal story is I stopped after 5 because I was so bored. And then this guy was like, you need to finish the next 7.
He stopped at 5!
I stopped at 5. And then, so the last 2 days, I binge watched the 7 episodes.
I mean, stopping at 5 is understandable because they're planning for this heist and it's like, when is this ever going to happen? And
I just was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It's kind of boring. They don't really talk about anything. There's a lot of political dialogue.
Right. And in the first couple episodes, they kind of set up all these threads that don't really come together until the end. Right? Like, oh, the guy, like Cyril, like, wait, how does he fit into any of this heist stuff anymore, right? And
why don't they apply this formula to another franchise? It feels like really off from what Star Wars is now.
But I'm okay with that. I think Star Wars needs stuff like this to grow.
But clearly it's not growing because it's buried. Growing. No one cares, right? Like, they're like,
so
Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Please buy little Yoda here. That's all they really care
Mandalorian
about.
Season 4, Darksaber.
Yeah.
No, Darksaber's gone.
It's gone?
Disintegrated.
Yeah, it got crushed.
I literally don't.
Well, there you go. Well, let's take bets here. Anybody think that the next Star Wars land in Disney is going to have an Andor ride?
Actually, what's the next Star Wars show coming out?
It's a ride where you just sit there.
What's the
next listening to Mon Mothma talk for a little bit?
When's the next Star Wars show coming out or movie?
Ahsoka.
Oh yeah, there's an Ahsoka show.
But are people? That looks very much fan servicey, like
super fan servicey.
Like, we're gonna do all the things that you think it's cool with two lightsabers.
You're adding Star Wars Rebels in there.
Right? Yep, you're tying back Rebels. You're bringing back, Ahsoka is just a beloved character.
Sure.
That feels much more standard Star Wars. Oh, this is what people like. Let's give them this exact thing. Yeah. This is, let's try to give them something new. Oh, it turns out nobody cares.
Well, people are going to be talking about because in the Lego world, they're re-releasing the Ghost. Right, the ship.
Okay.
And that ship, I mean, like,
that's a great ship.
Yeah, the aftermarket for it is like hundreds of dollars.
The Ghost, and then the little breakaway Phantom, which I thought was really cool too.
Yes, that's a cool ship.
That is a cool ship. Whereas, were there any cool ships here? Oh, I mean, a Luthen ship.
It was cool, but we didn't see enough of it.
You don't spend that much time with it.
And they didn't make a Lego set.
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody would buy it. Why is no one watching the show? This is such a good show.
Great.
It sort of ends on a cliffhanger too.
I
thought it'd be a nice
ends on a cliffhanger.
Kind of thought it would be a nice resolution, but it's sort of.
I kind of like that.
No.
That it's the spark that will light the fire that will burn down.
No, that was the kid sweeping in The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
That's
right. Force sweeping. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah,
yes, but you're right. It sort of shows.
Again, the entire series is about kind of ground level evil, ground level tyranny, and ground level resistance, and what you can do to kind of fight. And I like that it wasn't a sweeping victory. They kicked them all off, and they celebrated, and Nub Nub came on, or not Nub Nub, Yub Nub came on. It wasn't that, right? It would have been disappointing if that's the way it ended. If everyone got a happy ending and it resolved.
Okay, fine.
I feel it's in keeping with the tone that the series has set.
Yeah.
Score for Andor.
Rob, you go first.
I give it an A-.
Score for Andor.
A- too.
I give it an A+.
Wow.
No question. This is, I think, outside of the original trilogy, this is the best Star Wars content produced. I can't think of one.
So you give A+ for all the trilogy movies?
Yeah, just for nostalgia factor. I mean,
they gotta get A+.
Yeah, the New Hope, groundbreaking. Empire,
best of the
three, really.
A++.
Return of the Jedi, I my favorite growing up because I thought it was cool and cute and epic. A+. So
it's better than the best Clone Wars, better than Rebels. Wow.
Yes, I have forgotten basically. I enjoyed Rebels when it came out. I've forgotten most of it, but there are scenes here. There are characters that I will remember for.
For me, an A- is because it's telling a lot, and I do wish there was a little bit more forward momentum at times. That was a little bit faster, and there's a little bit more action to it.
But I mean, how much of that is because it's Star Wars? Kind of to your point, right?
To my point,
yeah. If it was a completely different franchise,
that's right.
That kind of you don't have these expectations going in of it being A when it comes out as B. B is actually great, and so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is the West Wing. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Right.
A+.
I haven't seen that. I heard it's very good.
Yeah, it's a little political. Like some of those political dialogue. Right. There's no action. There's no gun. Right. So I think this one, it's definitely solid. I mean, Rob, what would you give an A-? I thought you were going to rank it higher.
again, the beginning, right? It didn't. It was only when I was playing hockey that someone that I was playing hockey with is like, you got to finish Andor. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's honestly word of mouth. It was word of mouth that got me to finish.
And so maybe slowly over time this can grow an audience. I don't know.
I don't know if I can rewatch this. I'm going to fall asleep at some points.
Yeah. That's true of DS9. There are some episodes that are just terrible. I mean, but that's true for TNG too. The different era of television, I guess.
Yeah, maybe when I think about it again, it goes higher. I definitely think it's in the A category.
He was building the
Death Star,
but not even just the Death Star. He was building parts that built the laser. The laser that killed him.
That's cool.
That's
but
nice.
why would a droid not be building that? Do you tell me that has to be by hand made?
It's a good question, because there are droids that kind of take it and put it together.
Or maybe that's just the idea.
That's the point. That's the point of that tyranny. We treat you as equal, as dispensable as droids.
Yeah, we don't really care whether it's backbreaking or whatever. You're just doing it. Right.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the evil. And again, it established the Empire so well. It felt real. Right.
Yeah, and So
A plus. No question.
Wow. Okay.
No question. Okay. Everyone, if you like. Well, I don't know if everyone that likes Star Wars would like the show. That's the problem. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah.
You just got to give it a chance, right?
But if I'm just saying,
most people are not. That's a
point. Maybe there are more casual Star Wars fans who like the Star Wars lightsabers, and which is fine. If that's how you enjoy Star Wars, they would hate this. Maybe even if they watched the whole thing, they would hate it. I don't know, but I think this is such excellent writing.
Well, my kids who watched all the Star Wars, they never finished Andor.
Yeah,
they couldn't get through it.
Right.
So
that
they stopped.
Is understandable. I can see that. That tracks.
But that's sort of the point. Is that if you just
your kids are a little older, would they watch Andor? Probably not.
No, but although my daughter was watching one episode, and I thought she was just goofing off on the side, but then she came back today and she was like, "Oh, that's that person's sister." Oh. So she's like, "Dad, I pay attention to."
Yeah, there you go.
That's all right. Maybe it's not over your head. Okay.
All right. So, have you seen Andor? I'm guessing not. Please watch Andor. Until next episode, please keep watching Andor, and let us know what you think about what we thought in the comments. If you've only watched the first 5 episodes and you think we're crazy, watch episode 6, which is, I think, one of the highlights of the entire series.
If you get to the end of this video, please do, just for heaven's sakes, put a comment below so we can interact with this idea.
Oh, yeah, so we know that somebody... This is like shouting into the void here.
Yeah, okay, anyways.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Like and subscribe as usual. Well, right. Hopefully you actually do. Okay, I know I should change my line there.
All right, thanks so much.